Good morning. Today we will discuss about public relations. In short, it is called as PR. What is public relations? Public relations is an area of mass communication which discusses about the goodwill of an organization. It talks about the effective communication between an organization and its publics. Now, before we go to what is publics, let us have a quick look at what is public relations. The British definition for public relations is public relation is the deliberate, planned, and sustained effort to maintain and establish a mutual understanding between an organization and its publics. So, let us see what is public relations. If you are doing business without public relations, it is like winking at a pretty girl in the dark. You know what you are doing, but nobody else does. As told earlier, public relations is a 20th century phenomenon. Public relations is a 20th century phenomenon, and it is now advanced. It is now called as corporate communication, or we can say that public relations has changed to a new term called corporate communication. Both the terms are relevant in the present context because public relations earlier it was public relations which was carried out. Now it is talking to the whole stakeholders, and that is the corporate communication. So public relations, talking about public relations, the British Institute of Public Relations, Public Opinion, the British Institute of Public Opinion defined public relations as public relations is the deliberate, planned, and sustained effort to maintain and establish a mutual understanding between an organization and its publics. Now, talking about some of the experts in the field of public relations, Scott M. Cutlip and Ellen H. Center has defined that public relation is a management function that identifies, establishes, and maintains a mutually beneficial relationship between an organization and its publics on which its success or failure depends. Now, talking about, before going to history of public relations, let us see what are publics. What are publics actually? Public relations talks about publics. Publics are internal publics and external publics. In the case of internal publics, they are the people who are working inside an organization, and in the context of external publics, they are the whole publics who are in the external field, like the government, the media, the raw material supplier, all the other things, all other stakeholders or all other people, not in the internal section of an organization is called external public. Talking about the history of PR, public relations evolved in the United States. Public relations evolved in the United States, and it was earlier, people were not, earlier the business was not bothered about public relations, because the business, they want to conduct the business and they do not appreciate the customers or the people who purchase the products. They were not having any sort of support from the businesses. So in order to have some support from the business, or in order the organization started understanding its customers, understanding its customers, because without that public relations cannot be done. So in an organization, what they did was, whatever the organization was doing, whatever products were the organization bringing out, or whatever things the organization was doing, it was done with the help of public relations. It was actually doing good to the public. For example, if you buy a product and if the company contacts you regarding the product delivery and regarding the product, the working of the product, then that was called as public relations. In US earlier, the businesses did not mind the people who are doing, who are purchasing the products of the organizations. So later, they could understand that people like Ivy led by Charlie, Edward L. Bernays, all these people, they were the persons who introduced public relations in the field of mass communication. So public relations as such, it is a discipline of mass communication where the publics are given much importance. In India, we can, if you look back to the history of public relations, we can talk about King Ashoka. King Ashoka communicated to his to his praja or to his people with the help of public relations. People like there were kings and rulers who disguised themselves and entered into the publics to understand what is public relations. So actually, public relations is even though it is a new phenomenon, the phenomenon developed in the 20th century, it is also a phenomenon that existed earlier in the historic ages. So talking about the history of public relations or modern public relations, it evolved with the expansion of the business and commerce. James Grunick and Todd Hunt, they suggested a useful way of looking at PR history by using 4 categories of communication, relationship with the publics placed in a historical context. Talking about the history of PR, if you look back, the public relations sector in India was developed by Tata. Tata set up a township in Jamshedpur where they established a township, and in the township they provided all the facilities required for the people to survive. And this was the start of public relations in India. Before that, the Great Peninsular Railway, they also introduced public relations. The Great Peninsular Railway introduced public relations for the purpose of promoting rail services. So let us just look at the history of PR. The first is the press agentry or publicity model. What is press agentry or what is publicity model? Now the press agentry, earlier I talked about the sector of public relations, that businesses were not bothered about the well-being of the customer. So the businesses had to move to public relations in order to attain the confidence, attain the complete success for the business by doing public relations. So first there were press agents. When the businesses understood that they need some people who should promote their business by writing or communicating, so the press agents were developed. The press agents, what their job was to write about a company. The press agents were hired. The press agents were hired and they were used to communicate regarding a company. And these press agents, there are Upton Sinclair, there were persons called press agents, and these press agents, they wrote for the company, they wrote for the organization. They wrote for the organization in the sense that they wanted to communicate with regard to organization to the publics. So let us look at what is press agentry or publicity model. A press agent or publicist aims to secure coverage for a client, and truth is not an absolute requirement. So whatever the press agents did, they wanted to communicate regarding a product to the public, and they did it. But they did not, they exaggerated the product, but they did not, they did not secure, they did not aim to secure, secure coverage for a client. They did not consider truth as an important requirement. Whatever they communicated according to the businesses, and they did not bother whether truth is required or not. Later, these persons like Grunick and Hunt, they pointed out that the practitioners in the organizations, they concern themselves most with getting attention in the media for their clients. So these practitioners, Grunick and Hunt, point out that the persons persons working as public relation people in an organization, they concern themselves with getting attention in the media for their clients. Now the bureau's tacticians, what they did, what they wrote essays favorable to their clients and crafted them to look like articles written by journalists. So as I told you earlier, the businesses, they hired these people called publicists, or they hired these people called press agents, and these press agents were made to write or communicate to the public with the help of uh, write-ups about their organization. Now these practices, the practices like hiring a person and writing about the organization, they were not ethical, they were unethical. And earlier practitioners, they would do whatever it took, even if that were shady or illegal, to care of a client's needs. Their actions range from bribing lawmakers to vote in ways that help the company to paying freelance journalists to write articles favorable to the firm. After a number of years, these unethical practices started backfiring. That's what I mentioned earlier. There is in US where the public relations evolved. The businesses did not bother about the public. They wanted to just sell the product and make profit. They did not bother that whether the customer was happy with the product or not. So that's all for the time being. Manu, നോക്കൂ, ഞാൻ ചെയ്തിട്ട് ഒരു 5 മിനിറ്റുള്ള സാധനം ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. മതിയെ പോരെങ്കിലും വീണ്ടും ചെയ്യാം.